Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are going to continue trusting the process and we're going to make some really good progress in this painting. I think you're really going to like it. So honestly, why am I still sitting here chatting to you about it? Let's go paint. So if you'll recall, last time we ended with me doing a wash of gouache over this cliff section, and today we're going to see what some of the issues were with my doing that. So here again, I'm layering in a little more oil pastel, and I am using a different tool. I've used this tool probably twice. I think this would be my second time in this video, and it's really handy, but in the case of this painting, with all of the decisions that I had made up to this point, it had some serious drawbacks in that it was starting to remove a lot of paint. This tool that I'm using is called a blending stump. Some artists really like them, some really hate them. Ordinarily with oil pastels, you lay them down on the canvas and then you would use your fingers to blend them into whatever kind of consistency you're looking for. I've seen a lot of artists who will use a softer oil pastel, like layer it on really thickly directly from the like stick of pastel, and others will do what I'm doing here, which is where you layer it on and then you use either your finger or a blending stump to get it to look exactly like what you were wanting. And for me, the blending stump is really nice because with having cubital tunnel, it is difficult to use my finger consistently to get these like blending patterns that I really want. And as you'll see, I just remembered to put my compression glove on. I don't always remember to do stuff like that, but having tools like the blending stump just makes it easier on my hand to not have to put direct pressure from my finger onto the canvas, but I can use a tool. Again, the problem that I was having was that it was pulling the paint off. So I ended up making the decision to just leave it, and what I had was what I had. And to be fair, I don't hate how it looks. It's one of those where it kind of got stuck with what I had done to that point, but what I had done to that point was actually rather beautiful and was very similar to the image I had in my head. It was just a little bit off, and you'll see me tweak it a little bit. So right now I'm just adding some detail to the grass above the cliff just to make it blend a little bit better. And I know you can't really see what I'm doing, but it makes more sense when you can see the whole thing. So this cliff, I swear, was just the bane of my painting this painting. It was a lot more work than I was anticipating, and it took a lot more effort than I had anticipated. I really do wish that I hadn't put that layer of oil pastel in there. I think it would have made my life a lot easier if I hadn't done that. But in the end, it was a good learning experience, and this came out really pretty. But I do end up spending a lot of time just going back and forth on this one section of the canvas. I think the rest of the canvas came together a lot more smoothly and a lot more like I'm used to. And of course, oil pastels are a newer medium for me, so I don't expect it to be the easiest thing on the planet. I know that it is much more of a challenge than just using paint, having a second medium to really blend and really add a lot more texture and detail with. Like, it can make it a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult, but I do love the payout that you get for doing multimedia in this way. I know when you hear the word multimedia art, you think of like the stuff where you'll have like printmaking and stamping and all sorts of different media on the same canvas. But even like even just having two different mediums, that's still mixed media. It is still not just one medium. There are two on here, so it does still count as being mixed media. I think I might have said multimedia a second ago, but you knew what I meant. I meant mixed media. So having mixed media, it makes it more of a challenge. It makes it really different. But there's a huge payout in that you can make something absolutely gorgeous and so different than anything you can get with just one medium, which I think makes it really fun. I think that just makes it really special and really interesting to be able to create something very different and more, I think, layered and nuanced. I think it's just really fun. There's a lot that you can explore with it, and even if you make some of the mistakes that I made when I was doing this canvas, you learn something from the process, and that's just really cool. I do honestly love the experience of playing with new media and learning, even if sometimes you kind of mess it up and you got to figure out how to fix it from there. And this step right here is where I think I finally fixed it. This is where I got the color to be exactly what I was wanting. And what I was missing, hilariously to me, was light. This cliff was just a very flat, very lifeless, boring color. And by just going in and adding this dry brushed, like light beige color, I added so much depth and texture and life to this cliff that I know obviously a cliff doesn't have any life to it, but just adding that little bit of sunlight, that little bit of glint off the rock and the sand on the cliffs, it added exactly what it was missing. And I think at this point, this was like the 8th layer of paint and pastel and whatever else to this section. And I'm having to go super delicately so that I don't pull up any of the paint from beneath, because I want to keep that color that's underneath. I just want to add a highlight and make it stand out a little more and be really what I was looking for in the first place. I don't remember if I had talked about it before in the last video, but I wasn't really anticipating doing a cliff. It was almost a last minute decision. I had a completely different vision for this painting than what it ended up being. I used the Deck of Worlds to come up with a prompt for this piece, and the thing that I actually really recommend if you're going to use something like the Deck of Worlds is to remember that it's a prompt and you don't have to stick to it super rigidly, because the prompt that I was using was for a jungle, and what I ended up painting, this isn't a jungle. It's a forest, sure, but it's definitely not a jungle, and the prompt had nothing to do with this cliff. It just, after I put in those trees at the top, it was the right thing to do, and it was what this painting needed. And it was honestly an absolute pain to get it in place, but now that it's in, it is beautiful, and it is honestly even prettier in person than it is on camera, and I love it. I think it turned out fabulously. And that's just a really fun little experiment from taking a prompt but then allowing yourself the creative freedom and the creative liberty to do whatever you want, whatever your heart is telling you is the correct thing to do on your canvas or your paper or whatever you're working on. There is something to be said for following your prompt to get the beginning in place, but then following your heart to finish your artwork. So here I did decide to add some vines to that cliff. I did film that whole process, but you really can't see it on camera from this angle, so I ended up cutting all that footage, and I will try to do something in the final video to where you can actually see all of the detail that I put into that cliff, because it looks really cool. It just really was not, you couldn't tell what I was doing or anything from this angle. So again, this bit that I'm painting right now, this is like a little river, and this also was not in the prompt and wasn't even what I was going for. My original plan was to have this be grass. And then the color that I put on was over this orangey tone that's there. It turned into this really pretty water color. And I thought that would actually be really pretty and would make a lot of sense to be at the bottom of this sheer cliff. And then I thought, okay, well, if that's a cliff, then maybe this side is also a cliff, and you just can't really tell because we're on this side of it. So that made it kind of fun for the future of this painting, because again, none of this was what I had planned. None of this was what was prompted. This was just what happened, and it came out really cool. I don't paint a ton of water. It is something that I want to start painting more of because I do love painting water. I want to do some underwater scenes. I think that would be a lot of fun. That's actually one of my goals for this year, is to do an underwater scene. I don't know when that's going to happen. Probably in the fall or something. But just painting more water in general is something that I want to get more comfortable with it, because I am fascinated by water. I love to watch water flowing, moving, waves shifting. Like, I love it. And I think it would be a lot of fun for me to really perfect painting water. So I do want to work more with it in the future, and I think that it was really fun to just kind of have this set in my lap after having this really difficult and complicated cliff that just also fell in my lap, for this painting to just kind of be like, here's a little river. That's something that you really want to work on because you want to paint water. So here's a little bit of water that'll be something really fun after this really annoying cliff that I think that cliff took me almost a week to paint, and then the water took like 20 minutes. Not bad at all. So then here we are working on the foreground layer, or almost the mid foreground. There will be one more like small layer that'll be the absolute foreground, but this layer is the layer that's gonna be the focal layer. So I decided that changing the undercoat would be for the best. While I really like that orangey color, I wanted something a little bit more muted. So I ended up doing, I believe it's the color called Chocolate from Turner, and I mixed it with something. I mixed it with another Turner color. I think it was a pink. I don't remember. But it came out with this really, really rich, pretty brown that on top of that orange just looked absolutely beautiful. And I loved it. And then here I'm adding some more details to those little vines. And again, you really can't see what I'm doing. Well, and now we've been interrupted by a rabbit, and I don't really remember what I was talking about, but I think we were going on again about these vines. I kept staring at the cliff and just thinking like it needed something. And so I ended up adding a lot more vines than I had originally planned on. And I think it does look really pretty. Again, you really can't see it on camera from this angle, especially with my hand blocking what I'm doing. But it did turn out really nice. I'm glad that I put in the time and the effort to add these little details. I think taking the time to add the tiny details and make your painting really, really detailed just makes it a lot more special for your viewers, for the people who are enjoying your art and viewing your art. It adds a lot. It adds a lot of, this sounds weird, but it adds a lot of love. It adds that human element of like you can look at it and you can see that a human put their time and their energy and their effort and attention into adding these tiny little details. And there's something very moving about seeing those little things. So if you are an artist and you're getting annoyed by the tiny details, because I know we all sometimes get annoyed by them, just remember that those tiny details are often the thing that will draw people to your art. So it is never a waste of time to put in the tiny details and put in the effort to make those tiny details really pop and really shine. It also, I think it makes you a better artist in general if you can do those little tiny details, because if you can paint a thing really small, you can probably also paint it like full size or normal size. If you can paint it really small, and then you can paint it small, and then you can paint it medium small, and then medium, and then a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, because you've learned to do it really small first, and you know where all those little tiny details go. I think it just helps you really hone your abilities as an artist and really grow in what you can do and what you almost bring to the table as an artist. Because of course you bring your own style and your own ideas and your own vision to the table, but just having those little things that kind of make your signature style. Now I'm trying to think of what my signature things would be, and honestly, it's my trees. I have signature trees. I have 2 signature trees. And I've just made those the signature trees of my little world, and I love how they look, and I get a lot of compliments on my little trees. So find that thing of yours that you paint really well, that you really like painting, that you really enjoy doing the details on, and make that your thing. People will notice it, people will love it, and even when a painting is kind of kicking you in the butt because you made a bunch of silly mistakes with oil pastels, in the end it'll still be beautiful, and there will still be a lot of people who see it and love it and appreciate it, and in the end you'll look at it with appreciation for all the stuff that you learned while you were working on it. And that's just really special to me, and I think that this painting will always be really special to me just because of the number of little things that just kind of went wrong and in the end turned out so right. It was definitely a challenge. Again, I had to trust the process so much, even with deciding to change from grass to water, and then having to figure out how this foreground layer was going to look. I had a vision in my head and it wasn't matching the canvas, but the canvas looked better than the vision in my head. And that meant that I had to really, really trust my skill as an artist and my skill as a creative in general. I had to trust that my hands and my eyes knew where things needed to go and what colors needed to go where better than my head did. This painting really, really came from my heart and not from my head, which is very different for me. A lot of the time I paint from my head. I have an idea and I put it down on canvas. And this time it was just my head had an idea, but my heart had a better one, and my heart won out. And even when it was a struggle, my heart won out and it turned into this absolutely gorgeous painting. So here I'm just adding in those signature trees of mine, and as you can tell, we are nowhere near done yet. We still have so much of the foreground left to do, but again, I am really enjoying just working layer by layer, and I think for this painting in particular, that was really, really what I needed to do. So I got those trees at the top layer done perfect. I got the cliff done exactly how I wanted it. I got the water done exactly how I wanted it. And now we can focus on these front two layers and make them as perfect as can be and make it match exactly what my heart wants it to be, rather than the idea that my head has, because my head was wrong and my heart was right. And that's just really fun. It was a really fun experiment. It took forever to paint this. I think I was working on it for almost 2 months, which is really long for me. And I'm actually really glad that I took that long to paint it, because I think I needed to really take my time with this one. I needed to allow myself some space and allow myself to have the time to sit back and look at it and decide exactly what my heart wanted to go where. Super fun painting. I really enjoyed it, and I really hope that you guys are enjoying this series. We're going to have one more video where I'm going to show you the finishing touches, and then we'll do a little show and tell where I will show you what exactly that painting looks like at the end. And I hope that you guys love it as much as I do. It is very different. It is not necessarily my usual style, but I am incredibly pleased with how it turned out, and honestly, I can't wait for you guys to see the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.